Tipu, peace and blessings, everybody. I'd like to say welcome, Alafia, in the name of the Creator, Creatress, and of our enlightened ancestors, Shepsu, the Gungun, all those who came before, who lived truth. Now, this is just a video, the African Ancestral Jellyba channel. Today, we're going to be talking about the equinox, the spring equinox specifically, what that signifies. Before that, I've had lots of questions about this Uchat, what it represents. The Uchat actually is the eye of Heru. It represents wisdom. It's actually, if you understand the story, Heru is caught up in a battle because Set slays Oser, who's his father. And after that, Heru, who's born through Oset by magic, because Set had initially cut him to 13 pieces, but Oset reassembles all the pieces, and she gets impregnated with the seed of Oser to give birth to Heru. Now, the thing is that Oser had been the first civilizer of ancient Tawi, ancient Kemet, the land of the blacks, ancient Egypt. And what happened is that he had gone around the world bringing civilization to the people all around the world. So those 13 pieces which he was cut into was when he returned back to Kemet, and his brother, he had left his wife Oset in charge. When he returned to Kemet, his brother, who was Set, was jealous. So he pretended as if he had made him a sarcophagus, and he asked him to try the sarcophagus. And he locked him in there and floated him down the Nile. And the first part of the story, Oset finds the Oser in the temple of Ibados. She goes to the temple and she actually sees a great king in Ibados, and she has the feeling, because she's a sensor, she feels, and she's a psychic, that Oser is somewhere in the temple. He's actually buried in one of the pillars. So she tells the king of Ibados, who is a fan of Oser, because Oser brought Ma'at, which is divine law, the correct way of rulership, creating a win-win, to Ibados. So he opens up the pillar, and there's Oser. And Oser is in a deep state of meditation, transferring his consciousness to his spirit. And so she brings him back to Kemet, and eventually Seth finds out, because he's the animal, or the human within our spirit. He has a very strong nose. He's got a very good sense of smell. So he smells out Oser. When Oset is away somewhere getting food and gathering replenishment, he takes his body once more, and he's so vexed, he cuts it into 13 pieces and floats it down the Nile. So once more, Oset, who is very devoted to Oser, she finds all 13, 14 pieces and puts them back together, and through alchemy she's able to implant his seed in her womb, and they give birth to Heru. And Heru is the offspring and the natural heir to the throne of Kemet, because Set has usurped the throne by committing a coup d'etat and slaying the legitimate ruler. Heru comes out of his mother Oset, and the lineage in ancient Kemet was matriarchal, so it came from the mother. That's why the person who was the Shechem of Shechem, of the Pharaoh, he had to, his sister was the one who would give birth to the next actual Shechem of Shechem. Sometimes the Paherus, or the Shechem of Shechems, would procreate with their half sisters, their cousin, because that was the lineage through which they had to bring the next ruler. So after that, his pieces is reassembled. Heru is born. Heru goes out to seek revenge on his uncle, which is his uncle who is Set. However, because he's sinking to Set's level, and there's a saying in Africa that if you go down in the mud with pigs, you're going to get dirty. And Set is like the pig. So Heru goes down in the mud with him. He also gets dirty. He fights him to a stalemate until eventually the battle gets so ferocious that he plucks out his eye. His Set plucks out his eye, and his eye gets bludgeoned. With a bludgeoned eye, then Heru decides it's about time for him not to have recourse to the lower emotions and the animal within his spirit, like his uncle Set, because his uncle Set is a specialist in that domain, and he'll never win. So he goes to his father's old sage, the sage of his father, who's Tahuti. Tahuti is the great sage of his father, Oser, and he was the advisor. So he goes and he asks him in humility, please, Tahuti. Also, Tahuti is also the oracle. If you have access to the oracles, that when you tap into Tahuti, you're tapping into the Akashic records. And he tells Tahuti, I'm humbled myself down. Please tell me how it is I can restore order and restore myself to the throne of Kemet, because it's my throne legitimately. And Tahuti says, yeah, you are right. It's legitimately your throne, but what you've been doing is wrong. So you cannot justify it, even if what Set did was wrong. You need to take the higher plane and restore harmony. So then he sends Heru up in the Mount Behutet, where he has to do that human sacrifice. So he sacrifices human and his animal for his divinity to rise, and he fills his heart with Ma'at. Ma'at represents divine law. She's a goddess faculty within our spirit that they stole, and they put a blindfold on her and called her Madam Justice. But it's very, very, very wrong to put a blindfold on Madam Justice, because the most perfect aspect of our senses is to see. When you hear something, you can't even take it to court. It's hearsay. But when you see something, that's something which is tangible, which is real, which you have witnessed. And that's you can be a witness, but you can't be a hearsayist in court. So we understand that the eye, the Uchat, it represents the eye which, after his bludgeoned eye by his uncle Set, this is the eye which Tahuti gives implants in him again. After he has gone through that animal sacrifice and restored Ma'at to his heart, he gets the Uchat. And now with the Uchat, he's able to see the whole picture. He's able to see Ma'at. Actually, Ma'at means to see. The Ma'at is the male, and the T at the end, always in Kemet, represents the plural. Sorry, the female. The T at the end is the female. The U at the end is the plural. So, for example, Nater, which is the angels and the higher faculties of the spirit, when we put Netaru, that's the different ones. So the plurality of the different faculties of the angels. Okay? So he gets his eye restored, his Uchat. And with the Uchat, he confronts Set, not with his lower emotions anymore, but with his higher self and his higher spirit, the laws of truth, and with all his divine faculties in check, living the Ankh and Ma'at of those faculties. And Set can do nothing but give up. Set understands that he's not even going to be punished that severely. He's just going to be restored to his natural spirit of operation, which is getting rid of the worms and the bark of 1,000,000 years of Ra. Right? So the emotions are not bad, and they're not anything wrong with them. The problem is when the emotions are running your ship. The emotions are like children. So imagine yourself you're in a brand new car, and you go into the back seat, into the child's seat, you strap yourself in, and you give the keys to your 5-year-old child. So this is when you are ruled by your emotions, this is what you're doing. You're going to get into lots of crashes, lots of accidents. That's because you did not respect the hierarchy which you needed to have in your car. Okay? So let us put our emotions in the back seat, practice the men'ab, the breathing techniques, lower abdominal breathing, and see some results of our hard work, little by little manifesting in our lives. This is exactly what the Equinox is about. The Equinox is about taking some time to work on your spirit, doing some fasting, some liver cleansing, right? Liver detox, because the liver in TCM, for those who don't know what TCM is, it's traditional Chinese medicine. The liver represents the spring season, when we're going to the spring. So if you do not work on your liver going into the spring, you're likely to get some type of liver affliction, right? Based on the liver meridian, okay? The liver meridian, which is twin organ with the gallbladder, okay? So we work on our liver, we detox it, we do lots of aloe vera, dandelion root, watercress, all these other chicory. These are great things to use when you're fasting. You can juice them. You can use the detox formulas, but you want to keep your diet as clean as possible. If you're a meat eater, you want to stay away from that. Of course, stay away from the carcass. You want to make sure you go organic as much as possible. Make sure you cut out the processed elements, because at this point in time, you're actually replenishing and healing and preparing yourself for the next cycle. As you get older and older, it's even more and more important. in traditional Chinese medicine is proactive more than reactive. So we need to set ourselves up for being healthy in the coming season instead of waiting till something happens and then reacting. So it's all about being proactive, and that's what the equinox is about. In the equinox, we're going to realize that the day and the night are equal, and we have um, a 2 day possibility to add on to our spirit and do the spiritual work, and have a greater effect on our spiritual cognizance and our spiritual awareness going forward. Um, we're celestial beings, just like the earth is. Our physical body, Geb, is actually in ancient Kemet. Is Father Earth is Geb. So our Geb body needs to go through similar cycles as our Father Geb Earth. When we get to the equinox, well, we know that's a slowing down period. That's when the days are equal to the nights, and in the spring equinox, the days start taking over, getting longer, because we're going into the summer solstice. So at this point in time, we meditate as much as we can. We do our deep breathing, we do our qigong, we have some stasis, some healing sounds, and we really take it to a higher level in terms of our spiritual work. That is what the solstice, that's what the equinox is, excuse me. The 21st and the 22nd of March, those are the two prime days of the equinox. You want to do that. In ancient Kemet, people would have time off. These would be the holidays. They'll be holy days because these are the most important spiritual times in order for you to escalate the tree of life, to be a more divine person, to be a better person, to be somebody who knows thyself better and who lives truth to a high extent. So that's the work. Once again, you want to cleanse your liver. You want to work with those greens, juice them as much as possible, do the detoxing of the liver, and get ready for the spring cycle, to be healthy and to be wealthy and to be wise and to understand your true self. Once again, I'd like to say peace and blessings. Today's ancestor is the equinox. This is an occurrence which is as important as the ancestors I talked about. Because at this point in time, we need to take it slow, easy, and work on our spirit. Take as much time of sleep as we can as well to really replenish ourselves. Because remember, sleeping is healing. When we sleep, that's the number one nutrition, even before breathing. Sleeping and then breathing, then water. Because remember, you cannot, well, breathing is most important. Because breathing, you cannot go more than minutes without breathing. Water, you can go a few days without. But you also want to drink lots of water in the equinox, so you want to nutrition your system. Okay, so I like to say peace and blessings to one and all. Observe the equinox, see how it works. Try to maybe get into it by doing a juice fast, maybe the first day, with all the liver cleansing juices. And maybe you can do a water fast going into the next day, or just do a juice fast for both days. But once again, depending on what your diet is, if you're a heavy meat eater, eat lots of junk, just cutting out that junk and having some organic produce and stuff for 2 days is something which is taking you to a high level in terms of higher level for nutrition for those 2 days. So I'm sure you'll see some wins in terms of your spiritual work, and measure them as you go through the year. Because this is a judgment time in ancient Kemet. We used to go in front of Tahuti the judge, right? Sebek would take us, and Ma'at would weigh our heart against the feather. So we were declaring ourselves as free of sins. And this was an important time. We need to look back at how we lived our life from the solstice up until the equinox, and then decide whether we'd live truth. So we needed to do our declarations. It was very critical. So this is time for declarations as well as meditation, as well as planning and looking back to see how things had manifested based on your planning in the solstice, and trying to see what you need to change in order for the rest of the equinox to the next solstice. You can really double up on your spiritual accomplishments, and the spiritual accomplishments will be also coupled with earthly divine accomplishments, I guarantee. Okay, so peace and blessings. Stay true to your African self, your African essence. Know thyself, because knowing thyself is to know God. Know the essence of who you are. We are resurrecting the divine feminine in this cycle. It's very important that God and Goddess come together as one androgynous creator, creatress. And from that point, we'll have balance and harmony in our lives. We need Ma'at as much as we need Tahuti. We need our set as much as we need our ser. We need them to come together in order for us to have a balanced perspective on the universe. So once again, peace and blessings. Het Tapu. Enjoy your equinox, and I'll see you at the end of the equinox, because I'm going to be not doing any videos until Wednesday, which is the end of the equinox. Okay, peace and blessings. Het Tapu.